It's a great sport and challenge. Every turn, every slope, every condition offers adventure and excitement. For the student, learning to ski is an experience, a challenge, a series of new opportunities. PSIA's first responsibility is to serve you, its members. We are interested in you and your students, and for those reasons we've developed videos which will enhance your students' enjoyment and success in mastering the sport of skiing. Equally important, this process will provide you, the instructor, with the tools necessary to successfully teach proper ski technique and enjoy the personal interaction with your students. The American Teaching System, or ATS, was developed to assist instructors serve their guests. To accomplish this, ATS is humanistically based, scientifically oriented, and offers a realistic, pragmatic approach to challenges of teaching skiing. The needs of the student, the mechanics of bodies and equipment in motion, and the fact that not every turn will look identical from skier to skier or run to run have all been carefully addressed. In accordance with the basic responsibility of every ski instructor, the American Teaching System has a teaching and skiing model which emphasizes the learning partnership that exists between the instructor and the student. Instructors need to work with behavior patterns and strategies intended to facilitate a successful learning process for the student. Students bring an array of experiences, both physical and psychological, and a variety of attitudes that shape their learning requirements and potential. Quality instructors must first determine their goals and then focus on those objectives and activities which allow them to reach those goals. They need to share that vision with the students, present the information in a manner which takes into account different learning styles, and be willing to check that the objectives shared with the students have been accomplished. What you do as an instructor is as much art as science. The science is displayed in your performance that is consistent with other professional instructors. The art is expressed in the special feeling that you have for the sport of skiing. The skiing model incorporated into the ATS is recognized as our center line. Center line establishes our skiing standard and consists of 4 basic skiing maneuvers: wedge turn, wedge Christie, open parallel, and dynamic parallel. Good skiing techniques are dependent upon the development of basic skills within the American Teaching System: balancing movements, rotary movements, edge control movements, and pressure control movements. Balancing movements are required to keep the body in balance when it is being affected by external forces. These external forces may be the result of deliberate actions on the skier's part, such as turning the skis, changing edge angles, or increasing muscular tension to change the radius of the turn. Or they may result from a reaction to uneven snow surfaces, powder, ice, or changes in terrain. Balancing movements are encouraged by having a functional relationship of the legs, not locked together or forced open, a comfortable tall stance for greater efficiency, balance over the entire foot, a disciplined yet relaxed upper body, and a dynamic relationship with the skis, and importantly, at turn initiation, a body that moves toward the next turn. Rotary movements are characterized by the rotation of either the body as a whole or one part of the body relative to another. Similar to balancing movements, the rotary movements may be subtle or quite strong. Rotary movements are more efficient when the rotary movement of the inside leg complement the actions of the outside leg. The rotary movements support the active guidance of the skis throughout the turn and are used to complement edge and pressure control movements. Edge control movements are the result of how the edges of the ski interact with the snow surface. The concept of control is introduced to the edging movements, recognizing that the forces which ultimately turn the skis come from the ski-to-snow interaction. The edges are the active interface between the skier and the snow. Edge control movements are more effective when the movement starts at the center of the body and is fine-tuned by the knees, ankles, and feet. The skis are guided to their edge, and that edge adjustment is used to modify the turn's shape. And the pressure control movements. Pressure control movements are used to regulate and adjust the pressure applied to the skis as they move on or through the snow. Pressure control movements are more effective when the changes in pressure distribution are smooth and progressive, and the body movements are in harmony with the changes in terrain, speed, and turn shape. Good skiing is the expression of a balanced application of all the 4 basic skills. These common elements are present for entry-level skiers to skiers performing the most complex movements. Now that we've explored the professional ski instructors of America's philosophy and the theories behind the ATS, let's take a close look at what is entailed in successfully instructing beginning to intermediate skiers, those from level 1 to level 6. Each level will use a basic formula in the organization of the information. First, the lesson will be introduced so everyone, instructor and students alike, knows what lies ahead. Common goals will be established and those goals effectively communicated. Each lesson will be well planned with care taken to select proper terrain and present a logical progression of activities. The information will be presented in a clear and concise manner, the movements demonstrated from a variety of viewer perspectives, and importantly, always focusing the student's attention to the appropriate portion of the demonstration. The students will actively participate in the learning phase by doing. The exercises will reinforce the verbal information. A constant check for understanding needs to be made before moving ahead. And finally, a recap of the objectives which were introduced and completed. By following a basic format from level to level, both you and your student know what to expect and how it's going to be accomplished. Level 1, the entry-level skier. This is the time to take extra care and be sure that sound fundamentals are developed. Proper technique from the start will make the entire learning and teaching process much easier. The beginning student must first be introduced to the sport and the sport's equipment. Skis, boots, bindings, poles, and don't forget the clothing. Take time to ensure that each student is familiar and comfortable with their new environment and know how their equipment works. Be sure and pick terrain not overpowering. Start with a flat, smooth surface, taking time to make sure that each and every student in your class is comfortable with the surroundings. Once you've determined your student is comfortable, it's time to introduce them to the basic skills used from entry level all the way to the most advanced maneuvers. Here are some examples of skill application in the beginning phase of skiing. Rotary movements are introduced in simple walking, step turns, and sidestepping. Edging movements are initially taught by flattening the skis to walk, edging the skis to sidestep, and stepping out of a gentle straight run. Pressure control movements are encouraged by going from foot to foot while walking, standing with equal weight while in a straight run or straight wedge, and stepping to the side out of a straight run. Balancing movements are clearly displayed by remaining comfortably balanced over the feet in a tall yet relaxed stance. Be sure to pace the class such that each student is completely comfortable with the exercise prior to moving ahead. Take the extra time to develop the sound fundamentals which will come into play as the student progresses with the sport. And importantly, make sure that the students and you are enjoying this new experience. After the student has become accustomed to moving and sliding on skis, it is time to introduce the straight wedge. The basic wedge is enhanced by learning to glide and brake. Once the skills required for making wedge change-ups have been acquired, moving on to wedge turns is relatively easy. Learning how to cross the slope is important for building confidence and preparing the student to make turns. Begin this process by crossing the slope in a wedge position. Ask for more weight on the downhill foot, increasing the edge angle on the downhill skis slightly to make the edge hold. After some success with a traversing wedge, give them the opportunity to do a regular traverse. A good balance exercise is to have them lift the uphill foot. When introducing the wedge turn, keep the terrain easy to decrease the tendency to exaggerate the rotary forces needed to get the ski to turn. From a comfortably erect stance, gently turn the feet and legs in the desired direction. Have the students look where they want to go, and the turn becomes that much easier. It's time for the students to rack up important mileage with their newfound skills. The comfortable performance of the wedge turn provides the mobility that students need. The ability to link wedge turns comfortably encourages the transition to more advanced skiing forms. Keep the terrain within reason, but look for a variety that will help the student learn how to vary the width of the wedge and change the shape of the turn to control speed. Quality mileage is the key to advancement. Before the lesson is over, take time to reinforce the goals you established at the outset. Are your students familiar and comfortable with the equipment and environment? Do they understand the basic skills involved in walking, straight running, and the gliding braking wedge? Have they developed a sensation for moving and gliding? Can they vary their speed and come to a stop by controlling the size of the wedge? Have you introduced them to the wedge turn? Can they begin linking those turns together? Be sure that each and every student feels comfortable with the vast amount of information you've delivered. It can be overwhelming for some. Thank your student for their time and attention and invite them back for the next lesson. Remember, your attitude and actions are critical in whether or not that student continues forward with the sport of skiing. Level 2 continues building on the basic skills learned in Level 1. Be sure to take the time to establish your collective goals before setting out. The first portion of the lesson is devoted to review. Review the gliding and braking wedge with the repetition necessary to master the linked wedge turn. After reviewing, you will have a solid understanding of each student's ability. During Level 2, we'll introduce the student to the lift, the one element which will provide the terrain variation critical to advancement. Encourage movements that improve skiing performance. A tall stance with flexion at the ankles, knees, and hips are key balancing movements. The rotary movements supply the basic feel for steering the skis. The student should be aware of the inside foot complementing the outside turning foot. By understanding the relationship of a soft edge angle and a gliding wedge to a more extreme edge angle in a braking wedge, the student begins to master the edging movements. Pressure control movements are realized as they begin to move their weight from foot to foot. As they become more comfortable and more proficient with the wedge turn, encourage them to vary the size of the wedge for better speed control. Continue to work on their ability to traverse the hill and complete a wedge stop. Now is the time to begin working on linking wedge turns with and without a traverse. While developing their traversing skills, the student should be aware that traversing is a good method to use to negotiate steeper terrain and rougher snow conditions. Once you and the student feel confident in their ability to control their speed and turns with the wedge, begin preparing them for expanding their skiing environment by using a lift. Using a lift offers the skier the opportunity to really enjoy the freedom of skiing. Before introducing the student to the lift, be sure the student has acquired the skills necessary to handle the terrain once at the top. Before going up, take time to watch the loading process and then go through some simple drills to simulate the experience. Be sure to cover the unloading process as well. Nothing is more embarrassing than falling at the unloading ramp and holding the entire lift up. Be sure to instruct everyone as to which direction to go once they've unloaded. By answering questions ahead of time, you'll eliminate much of the confusion. And as discussed in Level 1, the need for quality mileage is essential. Continue to reinforce the need for correct skills. The solid foundation of these early skills are critical to the student's ability to grasp future techniques. As the lesson comes to a close, be sure to review what was covered in the lesson. Is everyone comfortable with the gliding and braking wedge? Have they developed a linked wedge turn? Can each successfully load and unload the lift? Are they comfortable with their skills to this point and able to acquire the mileage necessary to practice the wedge turn and begin linking them with rhythm?
But with this new focus, you can go out and improve by making some direction changes in a smaller wedge as opposed to that large one. Okay, because if you're looking for the speed control and the size of the wedge, that's okay if we're going straight or just cutting across the hill. But if we're actually trying to make a turn, the size of the wedge can quite often make it difficult to come back the other way because of that inside ski being on that opposing edge. Where with the smaller one, you can come through easy. The level we did today was Level 2, and by all means you folks are ready for Level 3, which is improving those wedge turns and going towards some matching at the very end of the turn, which would be heading towards making wedge Christies and later parallel. So you're in the process of working the skis more together as opposed to being opposed in a large wedge, and the evolution would be that you'll get closer to parallel with that.
The goals for students in Level 3 include refining the linked wedge turn with rhythm, controlling speed through the shape and size of the wedge, introducing the student to the concept of skidding and the wedge Christie, and how to begin adapting their skills to the mountain. Your mechanical and technical focus should encompass all the movements: balancing, rotary, edging, and pressure control. Balancing movements require a more active range of movements while remaining in balance. Rotary movements are slightly more active than those used in the basic wedge turn. The inside ski becomes more active in the matching phase, and there is a slight pivot skid at the completion of the turn. The edging movements require more edge angle from the outside ski to achieve more active steering. The student will also be introduced to the act of releasing the edge on the downhill ski at the turn initiation.
You think about it, if I was in a wedge right here and I was going that direction, it doesn't seem like this foot steers that way, but it really does. And if I use it and just turn it a little bit with it, then I can control that ski, flatten it to the snow just a little bit more, and it'll actually help the other ski come around rather than get hung up like that. All right? That last run was terrific. We kept great control, and you matched the skis to the terrain, the size of the wedge, just exactly like I'd hoped you would. Only what we did was we were making a turn, and then a long traverse across the hill, and then another turn. What we're going to try and do now is we're going to go from a turn, right into a turn, right into a turn. We can make those turns real big, or we can make them real small. And we'll play with the size. So we'll start with kind of a biggish one, so we got a little bit of room, a little bit of time to think things through. But rather than going straight across the hill in between each turn, we're going to go right to another turn.
To accomplish these objectives, there are several exercises that can be used. Work on short turns in the fall line, turning the inside ski from a small wedge to match the arc of the outside ski. Increase the speed and add a rounded shape through more active steering and edge use. Encourage a transfer of weight to the outside turning ski to facilitate matching and steering the inside ski. Steer the inside ski into the same arc as the outside ski rather than lifting it up and stepping it in. Working on a smaller wedge in rounded turns often results in a spontaneous Christie. In order to progress onward, the student needs to be introduced to the technique of side slipping. The side slip encourages the release and engagement of both edges simultaneously and earlier matching, which will eventually lead to a Christie. As the student advances, more and more of the mountain will be opened up for them to explore. The ability to absorb uneven terrain becomes an important technique to master.
What we're going to attempt to do is we're going to go the same speed on the steep as on the flat, just for now. So what we're going to want to do is, when we're on the flat, we're going to want to use just a little bit smaller wedge. And then when we get on the steep, go ahead and allow that wedge just to get a little bit bigger. What's a bigger wedge going to do? It's going to slow you down just a little bit. Yeah, you got more snow being plowed or pushed off to the side.
Learning how to work with the terrain, not against it, will allow the student to sample more of the mountain with confidence. At this point, the student has been introduced to being a mountain skier. Leaving the beginner run and moving up the mountain onto green slopes can cause some anxiety with some students. Be aware of this and provide each student with the encouragement necessary to ski the mountain with confidence. The more comfortable the skier is, the greater opportunity there is to continue racking up quality mileage.
A couple of things now that you want to remember is that it's not fighting it, forcing it, and trying to make it go where you want, but it's keeping your body loose enough and moving in the direction of the new turn in that comfortable stance that really allows all this to occur. When you match the size of that wedge to the terrain you're on, and you only really use as big a wedge as you need for the hill, that's going to make it easier also. You're getting a real big wedge all the time. That's good if you're on something steep or you need to go real slow, but it makes it real hard to steer the ski. So the smaller it is, the easier it is to steer the skis through there. And then by moving right through and just being very active with both feet, and particularly that inside foot, you can go ahead and bring them on in parallel.
Level 4 skiers are ready to gain additional exposure to the surrounding mountain environment. Some easy blue runs and natural snow conditions may be introduced at this point. In addition to skiing more of the mountain, you need to continue working on their wedge Christie turns by reducing the size of the wedge and getting them to match the skis even earlier. It is also important that the shape of the turn becomes round through the edging and steering phases. The student's balancing movements will improve by developing a more dynamic balance through an expanded range of movements. The rotary movements focus on the inside leg, steering to complement the outside ski during matching. This eventually becomes simultaneous leg steering. The edging movements encompass the release of the edge of the downhill ski at initiation, the steering of the inside leg which complements the edge change, and edging that becomes more progressive throughout the turn. The student should develop an earlier weight shift and apply more pressure on the outside ski at turn initiation for pressure control movements. You will notice that the skills are beginning to overlap more and more. Work on blending the skills together and reinforce the areas which need additional work. Proper fundamentals should continue to be stressed. When introducing the students to variations in terrain, be careful not to overmatch the student with terrain that is too difficult. Help them to develop the flexion and extension movements necessary to absorb the terrain. Reiterate to your students that balance while skiing is fluid, dynamic state, not a static position. With the change in terrain, it becomes important to improve the student's edge awareness and ability to control the Christie phase. Skating is one exercise which is not only practical but essential to continue developing lateral movements, rotary movements, edge control movements, and pressure control movements. Start in a straight run and alternate lifting the left and right ski. Have the student lift their ski and step laterally from a straight run. From the fall line, make small skating steps at slow speed. Add some push-off and your students will be skating. The skate step can be used to make shallow turns. Variation in terrain helps reinforce how turn shape really does affect control and speed. Take time to review the wedge Christie turns and begin working toward a more energy-efficient wedge Christie. Stress the importance of earlier and earlier matching of the skis using a smaller wedge with smooth rising and sinking motions to steer and match the skis. The new terrain and conditions provide an excellent opportunity to reinforce the fact that matching the skis is closely related to the terrain and the student's speed. At slow speeds, it is more difficult to match the skis, whereas when the speed increases and the turns are more in the fall line, it becomes much easier to match the skis earlier, shape the skid, and improve the accuracy of the turn. In reviewing what the student accomplished during Level 4, reinforce that they are real mountain skiers. Not only will it help them continue progressing and improving, but the added confidence and perception that they are no longer limited to beginner runs will go a long way mentally. Review the skate technique, the importance of greater edge pressure, and the continued need for earlier matching of the skis. With the addition of new terrain and varied snow conditions, it should become apparent why they've been working so hard. Level 5 is a big step in the student's progression. The addition of blue runs and steeper terrain add to the excitement and challenge ahead. With the new runs comes the need to improve their skiing technique by learning to match their skis before the fall line, an introduction to pole touch, and mastering the art of selecting turn shape to match the terrain and snow conditions.
One of the things you encounter when you start skiing more of the mountain are conditions that change on you, even in a mostly groomed area like this. One of the things we're going to add now at Level 5 is the use of our pole. That's going to help stabilize us and give us some really good timing to get through this stuff with.
The instructor needs to emphasize the need to maintain a relaxed, balanced stance through a broad range of speed, terrain, and snow conditions. The focus on the rotary movements in Level 5 should be to complete rounder turn shapes with improved accuracy, the active use of the inside leg for earlier matching, and learning how to steer both skis simultaneously. As the roundness and shape of the turn improves, a smooth transition between the increase and decrease in edge pressure becomes evident. The skiers have the ability to increase or decrease that pressure through weight transfer, edging, and more defined angulation movements.
But one of the things that we're going to really use as a tool, and something that will stay with us again through our entire skiing career, is the use of the poles. Up to this point, we've been carrying them around out here, and we've asked you to carry them in front of you and hold your hands in a certain way to help balance the body, but we haven't really talked about how they can help you in the turn. They're great for pushing along on the flat, and they're great for stabilizing yourself here and there. But what they do is they really do provide kind of the basics for some timing and some rhythm, as well as a cue to help us get into the turn and make that turn parallel just a little bit earlier. So that's one of the things that we'll work on that we'll hope to use for an outcome.
Start with a parallel stance and use both poles to push across the flats, progressing to a skating style. Stress the importance of keeping the upper body erect and in good balance. From a comfortable stationary stance, have the student swing the pole forward, alternating from one to the other. Focus on the action from the wrist to the forearm. Have the students make turns on gentle terrain, and in between those turns, have them touch, not plant, the downhill pole. Keep their focus forward and moving downhill. Move on to making wedge Christie turns in the fall line with pole swing and touch. Coordinate the swing to complement the flow between the turns. Match the skis sooner in the wedge Christie, before the fall line, smoothing the transition between turns and helping the student deal with greater variations in terrain and speed. Here are some exercises which facilitate the progression to the wedge Christie. Use uphill steps between turns to develop greater edge control and weight transfer. Try linking turns with a traverse. Step uphill from the traverse and add pole swing. You may need to work on the student's timing. Link turns with the proper weight transfer and pole swing. Now do small turns in the fall line with an emphasis on pointing both feet and knees in the direction of the turn. The student has added a number of elements to their skiing repertoire after level 5. Their skiing ability and technique is such that they can now comfortably ski all the green runs and number of blue runs in a variety of snow conditions. The matching continues to get earlier, the turn shape gets rounder, and there is some open stance parallel on more gentle slopes. Weighting and unweighting, edging, angulation, speed control, terrain absorption, and pole swing have been covered. Stress the importance of sound fundamentals and quality mileage. The latter shouldn't be a problem now. Skiing skills begin to show a marked improvement at this stage, level 6. The student will be able to ski all blue runs, begin to handle the open stance parallel with a pole touch, begin to understand the technique necessary for skiing bumps, and apply everything they've learned in a variety of conditions.
We really feel that teaching at level 6 can be extremely exciting. It's helping those students achieve the parallel breakthrough that creates this excitement for both the instructor and the student.
The balancing movements are showing an expanded range. Rising motions dramatically assist turn initiations, while sinking motions complement turn completion. Rotary movements are obvious in the more deliberate steering of the outside ski and the active use of the inside ski at turn initiation. The edge movements are progressive. The result, decreased skidding and enhanced turn shape. Pressure control movements are made to encourage weight shift at or prior to the turn's initiation. Throughout the turn, the pressure should increase on the outside ski, with the inside ski becoming lighter to encourage matching. For the open stance parallel, our first goal is to link turns, then add the use of a pole touch to assist in linking those turns. Begin with a Christie fan, progressing to uphill Christies from the fall line and gradually working across the fall line. Focus on moving the body forward and downhill at turn initiation through the use of a rising motion to release the edges and flatten the skis. Encourage a more active use of the lower body. Forward and inward pressure with the knees and ankles help control parallel turn shapes. Inside leg steering complements the arc of the outside ski. If you have established sound fundamentals, the turn should be fairly spontaneous. Be sure to choose enough speed to make the turns easy without causing anxiety with the student. The introduction of small, gentle bumps reinforces the need to become proficient with the open stance parallel. Start by selecting a run with smooth, round bumps that will allow easy pivoting of the skis. Take time to show your students how to select a line through the bumps that will help them control their speed and minimize traversing. The student needs to visualize that each bump represents a complete turn, and that prior to the completion of that turn, they need to start looking ahead for the next one. Encourage the use of their poles to assist with balance as well as provide important support. The time spent learning how to turn in the bumps becomes valuable as you begin to introduce the concept of changing rhythm and shape in parallel turns in and out of the bumps. Many of the techniques learned during level 1 are being incorporated into each and every action. Proper fundamentals combined with quality mileage on an expanding skiing environment of new runs, new terrain, and a full variety of snow conditions will reinforce the techniques learned in level 6 and will propel the student to the next level. From level 1 through level 6, you've taken a stranger and introduced them to a new, challenging, and exciting sport. Not only have you taught them how to successfully use unfamiliar equipment, you've had the opportunity to teach them about themselves and others in the group. Skiing offers individual challenges and the chance for success. From From getting in and out of their skis, their first successful wedge at the bottom of the beginner's run, loading and unloading the lift, linking wedge turns with rhythm, all the way to mastering the green and blue runs on the mountain, including some bumps, you've played a major role in your students' success. Ski instruction isn't black and white. There is a large amount of gray area from student to student and instructor to instructor. As a member of PSIA, you will constantly be adjusting your personal style and technique to fit the need of your student. By teaching sound, proven fundamentals, keeping your students' needs, wants, and abilities in mind, and striving to be a quality representative for the sport, you'll successfully convert one student after another to the fun and challenging sport of skiing.